Oklahoma State versus Tulsa, affectionately known as the Turnpike Classic, has classically been dominated by the Cowboys. But in the new, wide-ranging world of the NIL and portal era, this easily could become a real intense rivalry.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your top stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at Aldeo State. Today, we're partially brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment matter more, especially right now. When new customers can bet just $5, if your bet's a winner, you'll get $300 back in bonus bets to use all across the app. Make sure that you download the FanDuel app today to get the most out of your capitalization season. Speaking of capitalization, we all know that OU left like a thief in the night to the SEC, which means the Bedlam rivalry is no more. Hopefully it comes back at some point in time, but in the meantime, we do get to continuously play Tulsa. It might not necessarily be considered a full-on rivalry right now at the moment, but I think it very well could become that. We're going to bring on the expert, Jeremie Poplin. Dude, is there some validity in this new age of college football that this could turn into a rivalry that has some, heated nature to
it? I guess it depends on. There are multiple layers to this to me.
Okay.
Let's start with what some people consider like the definition of rivalry. Is a rivalry strictly what happens in terms of pure competition on the field in wins and losses? Is rivalry, in your opinion, built more on a regional basis because within a certain distance you're competing maybe on the field as well as off the field if you're looking for recruits, trying to pull people necessarily out of the portal, or you can fall into do you view rivalry as just a series? If it's been a long series of games, sometimes I think people just use the term rivalry as the overall broad term that series fits underneath. So I guess it would depend on an individual basis whether or not that you think that this is a rivalry or not. I'll leave it up to whoever thinks that it is or not. The fact of the matter is that this series is signed until 2031. It makes too much sense to me in today's day and age in college football for these two teams not to play, because I think it serves multiple purposes for both schools. And quite frankly, I'm sure we'll get into this at some point. Both schools need to save as much money as possible. And if you can save money, I know everyone likes the Oregon trips and everyone likes seeing the big-time matchups. I'm that way too when it comes to big-time football. But I also still revel in the fact that this was built around being a regionalized sport, and we are losing so much of that. And I'm afraid whatever the next version of college football likes, we get completely away from that and lose a very important dynamic of the roots in its sport itself, as we're seeing those constantly go away, some for the better, some for the worse. So I like the fact, and if you view it as a series, that's fine. I completely get it. Because, you start looking down this list and it's like, I think the stat is Tulsa hasn't won in Stillwater since 58. And now this is the longest stretch in this series that they've played that Tulsa hasn't won a game. It's been since 98 since they've won a game. So I think in the true sense of a rivalry, you have to say, well, Tulsa has to win a couple games. And I'd make the argument to you, were you paying attention the last couple of times that they played in 20 and 21? I mean, Zaven Collins is one cramp away from maybe, instead of going in the top 15 of the draft, maybe going in the top 5 of the draft just off of that one performance alone, and then the 28-23 game in 21. So it's been competitive. Last year was not the case by any means, but it has had moments of being incredibly competitive. I think it can be competitive moving forward, but I don't know if I'm willing to go out on a limb and say year after year after year, you're going to have those games where it's 16-7, 28-3. I think you might have a 45-10 that pops in there from time to time, or maybe a couple years in a row. But so much of that just depends on what happens in the offseason with the transfer portal, a number of names and new faces that you see. Mike Gundy this year talking about, we're a couple of weeks away from practice and we don't even know who 8 of the 11 starters are going to be. That's still, I think, going to be a constant in college football. And I know that's a very long, winding answer on your question on that, but that's why I talked about there's multiple layers to this.
No, that's fair. That's why you're the consummate professional. I'm just some goofy dude yelling into a microphone.
I don't know about professional, but I'm goofy, yes.
The regionality section of it is important, in my personal opinion. So I definitely agree with you there. And the classic terminology compared to the rivalry terminology, I do think that you can look at Bedlam because for a long time, OU fans kept saying this is not a rivalry, right?
Yeah.
Because we beat them 10, 15, 16 years in a row, which is accurate. But
Right.
I do think that the reason that it was still considered at least some semblance of a rivalry is because of the hatred. We hated OU.
Yep.
We hated OU fans. So when we did play one victory, it was a Super Bowl. That's okay for us to admit that. Maybe the biggest difficulty here is there's not much animosity between Tulsa and Oklahoma State. It's the same as Kansas State. We're searching for a new rival in the Big 12. But us and K-State fans are too close. Us and Iowa State fans are too tight and too nice. I know Taco Tortilla Reckham Tech is supposed to be our next rival, but we don't play them yearly. We can talk about that at a different time. Anywho, I do think.
But to your point, though, and this is where I'm disappointed in one of the areas I'm disappointed in the Big 12 commissioner is this. And I think that he's been great because he's been outside the box and he has generated more revenue than what I ever thought that he would be able to. And quite frankly, there's a part of me that when he got hired that thought by, what's today's date? 18th of September in 2025, he would be on to the next thing. He's not. He hasn't been. The one area that I have a major problem with is that within the Big 12, he has not done a good enough job of promoting rivalries within the conference, right? At all. The fact that Farmageddon was overseas, a cool environment, I would take that.
Yeah.
That is BS. To move that rivalry out of the heartland of where it belongs, okay, and someone's like, you're crying over something that doesn't matter. Maybe so. And I hope that it's just a one-off, but I don't think you should play that game overseas. And the second thing is that they seem to not really care in terms of the scheduling dynamic of crafting these matchups between these programs that have a natural rivalry in the first place. And you can take some of those rivalries that have been in place for decades and decades, and you're just going to throw them out the window. That's one thing that pissed me off in the early days about the Big 12 is that you took some of those natural rivalries. So, everyone watching this, I assume, can't stand the Sooners. The fact that the Nebraska-Oklahoma rivalry went away, every member of a college football fan base should feel bad about that because you lose something that is of a historical significance and historical value. And I don't think this commissioner has realized that yet about this conference. And I hope that he comes around to that at some point in time. That would be a big step forward in helping develop a rivalry for Oklahoma State, in my opinion.
See, Jeremy, there you go, being a consummate professional. Again, you're 100% right. And I have hooted and hollered till I'm blue in the face about this very thing. You mentioned Farmageddon. Guess what's not being played next year? Farmageddon. Right. The only rivalry we have is the Holy War. Yes. We don't try to foster other rivalries. Oklahoma State, Texas Tech should be yearly. Or you want to talk about animosity. There was a lot of animosity built up between Oklahoma State and Utah last year. We should have capitalized on that as a conference and had Utah on the schedule this year.
And not only that, the other one that bothers me, and I know that he's only partially in control of this, Mark, but even if it's not a rival in the conference, the fact that the iron skillet is going away with TCU and SMU, as a conference commissioner, shouldn't you step in and go, whoa. Something's wrong here, fellas.
Yes.
Something's wrong. Ultimately, who's paying the price? The fan is the one that's paying the price.
Yeah.
Have you paid attention to what SMU has done? I mean, Red Lashley walked into a room and said, hey, guess what? We want to go to the ACC. Who's willing to write a $300 million check? And one dude went, I will. $300 million for them to make the move, the investment into the program. And now you're just finally throwing that out the window. If you're TCU, no, the commissioner should not tell them specifically what to do, but should have some major influence over decisions like that.
I'm not going to beat a dead cow like we're about to play Texas, but I did cover that a little bit yesterday because I think it's an egregious penalty for the Big 12 to let this go. In my opinion, I don't think the Big 12 is currently in a position to be turning down other top 25 Power 4 matchups. The Big 12 needs maximum exposure, and I think that's a disastrous thing to happen. All right, so before we shift gears here real quick, I will try to add that the rivalry side of this, the animosity building side of this, will get tremendously heated up if Tulsa does take down Oklahoma State this Friday. And here's the deal, buddy. If we're susceptible to getting beat, it might be this season. I mean, you could have said the same thing about last season, and that's what Oklahoma State fans are going to root or navigate towards. Is we were horrendous. We were a awful football team last year, and we still beat Tulsa 45-10. So that was basically the creme de la creme of the season, was that Tulsa W. Didn't think that was going to be a conversational piece, but you do have some commonality. Dominique Richardson, Braylin Presley, you just gained one gains out of the recruiting cycle. He chose Tulsa over Oklahoma State. Naturally, we have done phenomenal with in-state recruits this particular season, but you and I both know there's going to be a ton of these recruits at this particular ball game. If Oklahoma State loses to Tulsa, A, that might be the kiss of death for Mike Gundy, and B, that would be horrendous for recruiting, and it would set up a rivalry because now if Tulsa does beat us or even take us to overtime, that game is going to be circled to some degree the very next season when we have to come back down to Tulsa.
Yeah, and to your point, going back to last year, it was almost like you're playing poker and you call and you're like, all right, here's my awfulness. And Tulsa was like, but you want to see an awful hand? Let me give you an awful hand on the season. Like, I'll show you what terrible was. Your line of thinking, I think, is correct in terms of how you look at the ultimate what if Tulsa were to be competitive in this game, hang around, things get a little tight, and one thing leads to another, and they get a victory. Just the environment, I don't know how it feels like from a distance. And I talk to a lot of people over there that have different connections. It feels like Stillwater's a little bit of a powder keg right now, and Tulsa's the one that potentially could be holding the punk.
Yes,
like for any old heads that remember lighting fireworks with the punk, like there's TU, and they're like at like close to watching, the artillery shell not go in the tube but explode before it goes out of the tube right there in front of everyone's face in Stillwater. So that's kind of like there's a heavy cloud, it feels like, over the environment right now.
And guess what we're wearing? We're wearing all black.
I know.
We're blacking out the stadium. I said this: if we lose to Tulsa, this will be known as the Mike Gundy funeral procession game.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that feel that way, for sure. So,
well, man, look, you've been covering this for a long time. You've been watching Oklahoma State for a long time.
Yeah,
there has never been, not even 05, where we kicked off 20 players and went 4-7. Not even the 05 team was that physically inept. Like typically when we lose to OU, even sometimes when the score gets crazy, there was always like 5, 6, 7 players on our team that would have started for OU, right?
Yeah.
We didn't have not a single player that could have started for Oregon or even been in the 2 deep based on the way the game went down. That was the alarm bell. That was the Amber Alert signal going off to everybody. It's not that we lost. It's that we have gotten so far away from the Mike Gundy model where we were in 2005, 2006, we didn't have a single 300-pounder on the D-line, but we schemed our way into wins. We couldn't scheme our way into a victory. We physically were outmatched. We got out-coached. We got outplayed. We got out-hustled, out-physicaled. It was the most disastrous showing of Oklahoma State I've almost ever seen.
Yeah, and that's why I envy you in the position that you're in, because you can go long form on these elements on a podcast like this. Because again, back almost like I was talking about with the layers of the onion for the rivalry, there's so many layers that go in with what you just talked about that kind of lead up to the perfect storm that was Oregon. And there's a part of me that's like, I look at it and you start adding all the things together. And by the way, all the things mean that you go back multiple years. Because even in the year where you had to kick off 20-plus players and there was a little bit of question about what type of actual culture do we have around here, right? And trying to clean this up, that you still had program guys that were there that got it. Like that version of college football is gone now completely, which is a whole other set of problems. I can list things, in my opinion, that I think Mike Gundy has done wrong, but it all culminates to that Oregon game where when it finally hit, you were like, yo, like we knew we were walking into a bear trap. Right. You're the Ducks, you know what I mean? Yeah. But it all came to a head very quickly, and you got so this is what championship level football looks like in today's era. And it was a reminder, and it brought back all of those feelings from Oklahoma State fans that I talked to of what led up to this season, what's led up to the last couple of years, which is they've all been saying about, okay, so Mike didn't do this. He's not a fundraiser. He's not this. He was slow to wrap his arms around the NIL game on this. He was, in a way, his own version of Dabo. And Dabo was getting grenades lobbed at him from all over different parts of the country. So Mike was his own version of that. And then the culmination from this past year with the board meeting and everything that went down coming off of a bad year. And it brought back all those memories that flooding in at one time. Not only did they get beat on the field, but everything that we were yelling about was on full display on the field there in Autzen. So it was that was a wild Saturday for sure that I can only assume was emotional for a lot of Oklahoma State fans and just brought about all the anger that seemed to have been at least tamped down for a little bit. But when it came out, boy, did it.
Yeah, you mentioned the perfect storm, and ironically enough, the Golden Hurricane roll into Stillwater, Oklahoma, and what might be a perfect storm for a bad day for the Cowboys. But we're going to watch or talk about some of the players to watch right after this. This Saturday, it's your opportunity to get a streak created or keep a streak going with DoorDash. Don't get out and drive around. Sit down, enjoy college football. It's almost that time. And then you can take a look back and crown this week's MVP. Who delivered for the Cowboys against the Golden Hurricane? Was it a former Cowboy that delivers in this particular ball game? Just like you can win every single Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more time and more money every time you order. These players deliver when it matters, and DoorDash is going to do the same for you. For Oklahoma State, coming off of a bye week, it's hard to fathom that anybody other than Trent Allen could be the MVP, staying on a streak per se. He came through when we needed him, no hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, this could be another performance that proves that Trent Allen against Oregon is not a fluke. And just like Trent Allen delivered for Oklahoma State to some degree against the Ducks, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays for you. With DoorDash Streaks, you can save every Saturday on your order, stack it all up throughout the course of the season, and save up to $250, including $100 back in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, keep the streak alive, fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. The promo period ends November 18th. Make sure that you be a part of this streak on Saturdays with DoorDash as soon as possible. As Lee Corso would say, not so fast, my friends, because FanDuel is here to help you with capitalization season. We're all about college football, but the NFL season is here as well, and FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for kickoff with cannot-miss offers. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 back in bonus bets to use all across the app. It makes every game more exciting because you're invested. You have something on the line, whether you're watching your team or you're just keeping an eye out on fantasy lineups. It is a quick, easy, and fun way to add a little extra energy to your festivities on the weekend. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That is FanDuel.com. Go there today to place your first $5 bet and get $300 back in bonus bets if it's a winner. Okay, buddy. Now we get to slide into segment 2 here. Coming into the season, Kirk Francis was a pretty cool story. The fact that we were able to get Banks Bowen from Tulsa, it's a pretty cool story. I think you could throw Clint Bowen into this equation as well. Yet Oklahoma State just announced yesterday, we have a new QB2 that was a student, not a football player, a student at UCF. Now, I'm going to break that down a little bit more in my next episode, but nonetheless, instead of seeing Banks Bowen, the former Tulsa Golden Hurricane quarterback, at QB2, we are going to get Mr. Noah. Now it looks like Tulsa in the Navy game, they made a switch up that looks beneficial. Tell us a little bit about Baylor and what we can expect from him and some of the other players we need to pay attention to in Cowboy country.
So this goes back to the New Mexico State game. There was a play towards the end of the first half, and it's 1st and goal from the 6, I believe. And they simple quarterback design run that gets Kirk out of the pocket. And he gets outside of the tackle box, and is one of those plays where I'm standing, I'm like, he's got some space here. And all out of nowhere, the linebacker comes, closes down on the angle. Kirk tries to avoid the initial hit, and when he does, kind of turns his back and ducks his head a bit. Well, when it comes through, the linebacker landed right on the back of Kirk's helmet with contact there. Completely, nothing on purpose. It's not even targeting or anything like that. It's just one of those bang bang plays. So, and coach has been very open about this in the media. So I'm not saying anything I'm not supposed to. They call a timeout, and they bring him over the sidelines, and he's asking him, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And Kirk's like, "I'm good. I'm fine. I'm fine." And they're just double checking on him. He goes back in and throws a really bad interception. I mean, he misses. There were 2 guys that were wide open, and Kirk hits that play 98 times out of 100. And they bring him over, and they look at his eyes, and he's not there. He's getting emotional at that point, and it's concussion. So they made the change. Baylor Hayes is a young dude. If you like wiry, kind of fiery, big on the field personality types, like Baylor Hayes is it. He's got a little, I don't know. I use this phrase on the air on the radio broadcast. I go, Baylor Hayes would definitely be in Cobra Kai. Like, he's just got that attitude about him, He would have the skeleton suit on at Halloween. And I even asked him that. I go, I hope you don't take this as a knock, but I described you as that. He's like, yeah, my personality on the field would absolutely fit that. Off the field, completely different kid. Fiery. Knows the offense, though. He comes with Trey Lamb from ETSU, so he's been in that system. Workload-wise, they're not going to put as much on him as what they did Kirk, just from an experience standpoint. Right. But you'll see has a full comprehension of the scaled version of the offense that they want him to run. Ball bounces out of his hands quickly. Don't get twisted. Kid's got some wheels. He scored on New Mexico State on the ground, and it was like, there's maybe a handful of guys, I think, in college football that could get to the pylon as quickly as he did. So he adds that little extra dynamic as well. But he's just young. He doesn't have a whole lot of seat time, and they're excited about him. So as of right now, we don't know. Like, Kirk is still in concussion protocol. Okay. And we don't necessarily know exactly who the starter is going to be. But they feel comfortable in Baylor because he knows the offense. And obviously, if Kirk is back and healthy enough, they feel comfortable in him. That's kind of the story right there.
Well, yeah, I thought that he looked pretty decent against Navy. Yep. And if it wouldn't have been for Navy rushing for 346 yards or whatever it was, I think the game would have gone considerably different. So with that in mind, regardless of who just is the QB for this particular ball game, what are some other players or areas that you think are going to be significantly better against Oklahoma State, and what we need to pay attention to?
Tulsa's offensive line, which was I'm trying to be nice, it was dreadful at times last year. They went in and they've done a really good job of piecing together a new line out of the portal. They're really, really happy with the majority of spots on the offensive line. Well,
your left guard and left tackle are both 6'6" and 6'7". That's crazy.
Yeah, and they've got one of them's got a ton of experience from ETSU. The other one was at Ole Miss.
Yep.
You know, they've got experience from Syracuse that they brought in as well. There's a Mississippi State kid. So Trey's whole philosophy has been from a Power 5 or Power 4 conference perspective. It feels like that if you've been recruited there and you've been able to get on the field and have playing time, you can come and be an immediate impact player inside of the American and with Tulsa. So that's been his philosophy. So they've done a good job there. There may be one spot that's still kind of maybe up for grabs a little bit.
Okay.
So you'll see that. Dom Richardson has just been a dude. Like, Dom reminds you of like when he broke free at Oklahoma State and you're like, oh, okay, all right. Like his best moments. He's got kind of that burst again. He's got that physical aspect. You know, they're averaging over 180 yards on the ground per game. And then the other guy that I think that will have some sort of play, he's had one every game so far, is the transfer from the U, A.J. Allen, who originally started his career in Nebraska. Just very shifty, different from a power perspective from Dom, but, man, very elusive and can run between the tackles with still being elusive. So he's been good for them. But the main breakout player for them offensively has been Zion Booker, who's their slot receiver who comes from Western Carolina. And when he was signed, like you can go and look at his numbers, and he was just he was productive everywhere that he's been. And he played a ton of football, which they loved. And he fit right in their price range because they were like, no one really knew about him. We can afford him. And from where he was at Western Carolina, they played against Trey Lamb and ETSU last year. So Trey saw him firsthand and was like, we got to go get that kid. And he's been great so far. Their best receiver by far. And the tight end, Brody Foley's a transfer from Indiana who had a ton of snaps at Indiana. They didn't really throw him the ball much. Tulsa's throwing him the ball. He's doing well. He's got 2 touchdowns on the year. So those are some of the players, I think, from an offensive standpoint that have been the biggest impact players. But they need those other guys that they got out of the portal. Micah T's from A&M, who played at Booker T.
Yep.
Kai Miller's a kid that played at Missouri. They haven't really had big impact plays yet. And I know much like Oklahoma State in terms of like, what do we have at the receiver spot and throwing the ball down the field? Like Trey's been very open about that. What we're doing in an explosive play situation is not enough. We got to get more out of the passing attack and the wide receivers than what we currently have.
Same boat. Okay, before we shift gears here towards the end, who on the defensive side of the ball is going to stop Oklahoma State for rushing for 360 yards?
So I really like what they've done with their defensive line. Go look at PFF right now, and you'll see from just a pressure standpoint, Tulsa's number 2 in the country from pressure that's generated.
Really?
I think behind Louisville. But those are just the outside guys. Byron Turner Jr. is Florida State transfer. You notice a trend here, like transfers and Power 5 kids that are coming in. He's been great. It's the interior, though, that's been really improved. Nakai Johnson came from Pitt. Tim Hardiman, who plays on the interior, came from Arkansas State, had like 900 snaps, like something like ridiculous. And then Joe Yelly is another guy along with Ty Newhouse. The interior of their defense is much improved from what it was last year, and they can get pressure on the quarterback. And then quickly, Ray Coney is the name that you will hear the most on Friday night from the Tulsa defense. Number 0. You can't miss him. Second leading tackler in the country right now. All over the field, an absolute animal. All-American at ETSU, came with Trey Lamb. Josh Reardon, who's the defensive coordinator at Tulsa, was the D coordinator at ETSU, so he knew the system coming in. And a lot of responsibilities have fallen on Ray just due to injuries in the preseason camp. But he's been an absolute monster, and you will see him make tackles everywhere.
Well, I absolutely love it. All right, so now we're about to shift gears and talk about the keys for both teams getting the victory. Tulsa fans out there, we expect Wendell Gregory to be a household name by the end of the season as well. But before we get to the closing here, we do have to remind the fine folks out here that you need to move and be moved. That's right, Mazda is going to help you accomplish your goals because they craft cars for those who just do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride. They have more IIHS Top Safety Pick awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From the footwork to breath work, athletes sweat all of the details, so does Mazda. Mazda's going to bring that intentionality to every single model. What makes everyday drives feel more like an experience is going to be accentuated with Mazda. The smooth handling, the intuitive controls, the all-wheel drive coming standard in almost every crossover SUV. You can drive with confidence through almost any season with a Mazda. Like our players that sweat all of the details, Mazda does the same thing, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. So give it a Mazda day so you can move and be moved in a Mazda. All right, now we're back in the action here. Before I let you skedaddle on off of here, what do you think the keys to victory are for Tulsa, for Oklahoma State, for example? I think that we need to find a way to establish the run. Much like, do we run like Navy? No. It's really hard to prepare for those Army and Navy teams in just a matter of a couple days. So I don't hold it against Tulsa per se, but that seemed to be something that we can exploit. The only highlight of the Oregon game was Trent Hallen running us all the way down the field in one drive. Other than that, we didn't really have anything going for us. He is going to be healthy for this ball game. I think it's important for Oklahoma State to establish the run and be extremely aggressive on defense. To me, those are the biggest keys to victory. What say you, sir, about the Tulsa Golden Hurricane?
Keys for me, I kind of throw the Navy game out. That's one of those that's just so weird for Tulsa. And by the way, they were on everyone. Just ask Oklahoma in the bowl game, right?
Navy's good, and Army just got Kansas State because you
Navy's
can't prepare for that kind of offense.
Navy's won 16 of 18, and their losses are to Tulane and Notre Dame. So in the last 18 games, so that tells you a little bit.
And dude, you cannot get your scout team to do that stuff the same way. So it's hard to prepare for. Exactly.
Well, and Horvath's been running the option since 6th grade, by the way.
I didn't know that.
And continued on. So keys for Tulsa. They've had – this is so weird how things change. The last 3 or 4 years, they have been stuck in first gear to start the game for as long as I can remember. And Tulsa's had really good starts to games this year. So one is I think they've got to come in and continue that trend to get off to a good start. Two is they have to hit plays down the field. Because if they don't, Oklahoma State is going to be able to tee off on their run game, which has been good. But if that's the only thing that you're bringing to the table in today's world of college football, then you are going to be on the losing side in a game like this. So the key for them is they have to get Baylor in a rhythm early. The receivers have to make plays. You know, they took 11 deep shots versus Navy, and they caught none of them at all.
That's huge.
And a couple of those were ones where you're like, okay, the receivers just got to go and make a play. And that hasn't happened on the outside yet, which brings in a little bit of why they've been just disappointed offensively so far. Every other metric for their offense that they've done, even in points scored, you look at, and they're right where they want to be for year one. Okay. Trey said, hey, if we can just find a way to hit on a couple of more of those, and if we had 10 more points this season, they'd probably be in a much better place than where they are right now than at 1 and 2. But they've got to hit plays down the field offensively for them to stay in this game.
Well, Trey Lamb even mentioned there's a lot of commonality with both teams, still kind of trying to find an identity. Yep. And we have a lot of the same problems. You mentioned that. We have the same issue at wide receiver. And Jeremy, I'll tell you, this is crazy from an Oklahoma State fan's perspective. No matter how bad we were, having an NFL wide receiver and an NFL running back was always on the roster, no matter what the record was, no matter how good we were. So we knew there was always going to be a Blitnikoff level dude out there, and there was always going to be somebody who could be in the Doak Walker conversation in the backfield. Yep. We don't know if we have either this season. That's another thing. We talk about the Oregon game just being a massively eye-opening experience for Cowboy faithful. The other thing has been, where is the guy at wide receiver? Where is the dude at running back? The guys, we were terrible last season. Yeah. But we still had Brendan Presley. We still had Ollie Gordon. We still had Nick Martin. So there was players that provided enough highlights to at least get somewhat excited throughout the course of the game. We are having the same problem. We don't have anybody that is taking the top off of the defense. We don't have anybody that's constantly winning 50-50 balls. It's been a very lackluster season. I know we're very early into it, but the things that you expect out of Oklahoma State, we're not doing. We're not even coming close to looking like we're capable of doing them. So I think that's important for both teams. Whichever team has the wide receivers that finally step up and say, I'm going to get this football, that could be the outcome of the game.
I agree. And it's, and now it's one of those eras too, where because of the environment that we're in with money that's handed out and going and trying to find players, like then you start looking at like, what's your return on investment sometimes in some of these players. And that's what every program's doing, right? Like if you're a general manager, you're going through and you're going the NFL route where you're adjusting and you're grading your roster every single day after every single rep in practice. You're going through and you're looking, and then that makes you quickly understand where the value is the money that you spend and also how you're going to spend that in the future. So it's a very intriguing time right now across all of college football. But I've said this a lot this week. This is one of the more intriguing games because from either side, I don't know what we're going to get Friday night. I really don't. I have no idea. I have no gut feeling one way or the other tomorrow night.
Well, and people can say what they want, and I'm going to, again, cover this on my next individual episode, but us going and get Noah Walters, former quarterback that was a student at UCF, just reading between the lines, something doesn't sit right with that, right? Does that mean Banks Bowen is just not even close to being able to step on the football field and take snaps in any capacity? If so, that's a problem. Because we're bringing a guy over who hasn't played football in over a year, and he's going to suit up and walk into BPS as QB2. That's just something that doesn't pass the smell test somewhere.
Yeah,
right?
it's a little odd. And the only thing that I can think of is that just because knowing how Gundy's a big experience guy and that they already don't have any experience in what's happening from the starter position and kind of the revolving door with everything that's happened at the quarterback position, that he just said, go find me a guy that's got snaps under his belt because I feel more comfortable with that guy. That's the only logical explanation to this, because when that story came out, you're like, okay, all right. And then, it should make you feel a little bit better. It's not like he's just walking on the campus today. He's been there for a little while, at least practicing with the team. But yeah, I think the only thing that really makes sense is the fact that this guy's got seat time. He's got snaps. He's got experience, even if he didn't play a year ago.
Well, I do think that opens up the door for further quarterback conversations in Stillwater America, but we're going to leave some of that for another day. Lastly, I'm gonna say that the Cowboys do get this done, but it's like 28-21. It's going to be a ball game, and I do think that it's going to take all four quarters for us to stretch this thing out. I don't think it's going to look like last year, regardless of whether it's Kirk Francis or Baylor. I do think that Oklahoma State is in a precarious position at the moment. We are struggling to find an identity. We're struggling with the back end of the defense. So there's some exploitable areas for Tulsa. And you and I both know that there's players on that team that always wanted an O-State offer, that feel offended that they never got one, that is going to come in with a different mentality. And Dominique Richardson, we know how that storyline played out. So there's definitely a little bit of animosity there. Same with Braylin Presley, right? Yeah. We told the kid he could play running back, knowing that we were never going to let him play running back, so he feels some kind of way. I do hope that Dominique Richardson and Braylin Presley both put up a hundo, but I do hope that it comes in a loss for the Golden Hurricane. What do you say, sir?
Yeah, I'll just because of my position, I'll stay away from like an actual prediction on this, but I will say that. Again, I don't know what version of either team that we're going to see. I do think that it is going to be far more competitive than what we saw last year at Chapman between the two. And more than anything, no matter who comes out with the victory, you want to be taking those stair steps every single week. And I just look at it from a Tulsa perspective, and the the first-year foundation of Trey Lamb as head coach, and you want to build to a certain point in year one, as long as they're taking positive steps forward in an instance like this, because, dude, the schedule doesn't get any easier, because guess who's here next week? Tulane. Guess where they go after that? To Memphis. The hits just keep coming for Tulsa's schedule. From a G5 perspective, is a very difficult schedule. As long as they're building and they're getting better, I think everyone will feel okay. Coach may wince at hearing me say that, because obviously you want to win the game, but I think you take a stair-step approach. But I honestly don't have a feel one way or the other. Would I be shocked if either one of the teams wins? No, I don't think I really would in this case.
Yeah, I would love to disagree, but I can't. I would love to sit here and say, Jeremie, be prepared for another 45-10, but like, we played okay against UT Martin, and then obviously we got absolutely boat raced by Oregon. And then what happens? UTEP beat UT Martin like 41-14. Yeah.
And this is me even sitting here and saying, like, am I just going to be stunned if it's like a 40-10 type game? Like, no, because we've all been a part of those. You just don't know. That's why I'm just like, I'm more than anything at all. I think tomorrow, outside of just the actual game itself, I'm as intrigued by what type of environment's going to be there, because it's a Friday night. If it's not as good of a performance as what they think, maybe a few things go wrong, like, what's the vibe going to be in BPS? Like, if things are close, because the vibe's not great now. Like, you had some more fuel to that, and you just kind of take a look around. If things aren't necessarily going their way during a stretch in that game, I don't even know what it's going to be like.
Yeah, I can tell you this. It's been difficult for the first time ever to give away tickets.
Okay. All right.
Dude, I swear to you, I asked like 7, 8 pretty close to me people if they wanted some Oregon tickets. Every single one of them said no. Yeah. And it was because, like, I don't like the way it's probably going to look. And I was even like, guys, it's Eugene, Oregon. What are we talking about? Yeah. But same thing. I asked a couple people, be like, hey, I can get some Tulsa tickets. Do you want some Tulsa tickets? And they're like, no, I'm going to go to this Tishomingo game instead. So that's probably the feel currently in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And I do think that it being a blackout, given the current circumstances, has a hint of irony to it that worries me a little bit. I'm being 100% realistic with you.
Well, we shall see. We shall see.
Indeed. Well, Jeremie, it's an absolute pleasure. I thank you very, very much for your time. Yeah, you're an easy guy to find in the state of Oklahoma because of the consummate professional that you are. But remind the fine folks out here how they can track you down and see the work that you do on the sidelines with the news stations, everything.
Yeah, so you can follow me on X, Jeremie Poplin. My name's right there. It's got an IE at the end. Don't ask my mother. I don't know what she was thinking. Why she didn't slap the Y on the tail end of that. News on 6 is my primary responsibility on top of being the Tulsa sideline reporter. We're doing all kinds of content. Newson6.com, news9.com. You can catch me on the Blitz on Sundays. You can catch me on the news here in Tulsa on News on 6, and check out our Oklahoma's Own Sports YouTube page. And we've got Oklahoma State channel, a Tulsa channel, and an OU channel. Not that any of you watching this care about that one, but we're really expanding our digital footprint with Griffin Media, News on 6, and News 9.
I'm actually very glad that you plugged that. Oklahoma's Own is remarkable. They had Clint Shelf on just last week. That was amazing to see. I absolutely love what you guys are doing. I'm subscribed. I watch them. I'm a fan. And again, thank you very much for coming on here. It is always an honor to catch up with you. Until next time, hopefully we get to have some fun stories post-game about a good victory for the Cowboys. Of course, I'm sure that's what you're rooting for, right? Yes, say it, Jeremie.
Yeah. And if it goes the other way, you might see a few cold ones thrown down. Just saying.
Man, I tell you this, just for inspiration for the next Tulsa game, if Tulsa beats Oklahoma State this Friday, anybody if you send me a Tulsa jersey, I will wear it every Friday for the rest of the entire football season. Every single Friday.
You know what? I can make that happen for sure.
I may regret those words, but yeah, I said it. It is what it is. It's out there. It's out there. All right, buddy.
Awesome.
Thank you
See
very
you,
much
man.
for your time. I greatly appreciate it, and we'll catch up again here before too long.
Absolutely. Thank you.
As for all of us out here in Cowboy country, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, you know I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Do me a favor. Hit the like button if you like it. Dislike it if you didn't. That's okay, too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. My podcast people out there, you're everything that makes this work. I appreciate what you do, so go do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave some reviews. All right, y'all. Later, taters.